I first saw this jet in 2013. I was working as a firefighter in the town, and one of our frequent stops was an assisted living care facility. This property was located on a shortcut route that we took, and I remember always trying to look over my shoulder and figure out what was going on with this Marine Corps jet that was sitting in this gentleman's backyard. Fast forward to almost 10 years later, and I decided to revisit this area and see if I could find it. It's still here, and I was lucky enough to make contact with the owner, and he was kind enough to let me check it out and do a little bit of digging on where this jet came from and what its story is. This is a Lockheed T-33 Shooting Star. They first flew in 1948 and were used primarily by the United States Air Force as a jet trainer. The T-33 was developed from Lockheed's P-80 Shooting Star, which was the first jet fighter used operationally by the United States Army Air Forces during World War II. It was designed and built by Lockheed in 1943. It was America's first successful turbojet-powered combat aircraft. Its role as a frontline jet was short-lived, though. It was soon outclassed with the appearance of swept-wing fighters such as the MiG-15, and it was replaced in its role by the transonic F-86 Sabre. I think it's noteworthy to mention that even though World War II ended before the P-80 could see any real combat, the aircraft proved itself worthy of respect during the Korean War. It actually won history's first all-jet battle. A shooting star flown by Air Force Lieutenant Russell Brown destroyed a Russian-built MiG-15 near the Yalu River on November 8th of 1950. These things were legit gunfighters. So this isn't a Marine Corps jet. This is an Air Force jet. Whoever painted that on there, though, did a good job. They knew what they were doing. The owner of this jet is a retired United States Marine. He's had this jet in his yard for 45 years. Although he was disappointed to hear that it wasn't a Marine Corps jet, he's definitely interested in looking into the history of this. Some T-33s actually were made to hold 2 machine guns for gunnery training, and in some countries, the T-33 was even used as a combat aircraft. Its primary role, though, for the United States Air Force was as a trainer. This is a T-33A. A total of 5,691 T-33As were produced by 1959, and the T-33A was actually the only jet trainer in the United States Air Force inventory from 1948 until 1957. So I think we've established that the T-33 was a really important and integral part of the United States Air Force inventory for a number of years. I really want to know about this particular T-33 though. What's its story? Where did it come from? Where did it serve? I surely didn't want to ask, but the owner suggested that maybe I pop the canopy and take a peek at the cockpit. You want to talk about a kid in a candy store? I think I had this thing open in about 5 seconds. Maybe it took a little bit longer than 5 seconds. There is no mechanical assistance to open this canopy anymore, and I cannot believe the weight of this thing. It's super heavy. We had to be really careful with our fingers and had to use a small pry bar to get it started. But it was well worth it to take a peek at the inside of this. It's definitely gutted pretty good, but there were some interesting things to look at. Who was the last person to look out of this windshield on final approach? How many men who trained in this particular jet went on to fly Phantoms or Thunder Chiefs in combat over the skies of Vietnam? I suppose there's really no way to know those small details. That will have to be left to the imagination. I was able to find some larger details though using these tail numbers that are still legible. After making a number of phone calls, I was actually able to obtain the actual data sheet of this jet, how old it is, where it was manufactured, where it saw duty. This jet, serial number 51-9079, was completed in April of 1953 at Lockheed in Burbank, California. This jet left Lockheed in Burbank and made a stop in Oakland, then it went on to Yuma. It stopped at Hill Air Force Base in Utah, it stopped at Lowry Air Force Base in Denver, and it ultimately ended up here in the Midwest, where it saw the majority of its duty. One name that came up over and over again on these documents was Truax. Originally known as Madison Army Airfield, Truax Field was activated as an Army Air Forces airfield in June of 1942, during World War II. It was used to train radar operators, control tower operators, and other communications fields for the Army Airways Communication Service. A special unit established in 1943 trained radio operators and mechanics on the B-29 Superfortress. It was closed as an active airfield in November of 1945. It was then reactivated by the Air Force in February of 1952 during the Korean War as a fighter interceptor base. In April of 1955, Truax became the headquarters of Air Defense Command's 37th Air Division. It was in charge of the air defense of parts of Wisconsin, Illinois, and Indiana, including the Chicago sector. Speaking of Chicago, this jet was actually based out of O'Hare Airport in 1956 for a short time with the 62nd Fighter Squadron. This is the faded but still recognizable insignia for the 62nd. The jet also did a short stint in the 438th Fighter Interceptor Squadron stationed at Kinross Air Force Base in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. The bulk of its service, though, appears to have been at Truax Field, which today is home of the 115th Fighter Wing of the Wisconsin Air National Guard. This plane has a heck of a history. The question, I guess, now is what's going to happen to it? The owner is concerned that it's going to be scrapped after he's gone. He definitely doesn't want that. He's approached the town, and they don't seem too interested at this point in taking the jet on or displaying it anywhere, despite the fact that it's a fairly well-known fixture in the area, and it has been for over 4 decades. The owner of this jet is a great guy. I had a chance to talk to him quite a bit as I explored this jet, not only outside but inside. It was sitting at a VFW for many years, and unfortunately it began to be vandalized. So he took it upon himself to purchase the jet, and he actually used equipment from his own business to tow the jet from its location at the VFW to his yard, where it has been for, as I said, over 4 decades. He's watched over this jet for a long time. I guess if you own anything for 45 years, you could become attached to it. His dream is to see this jet go to a museum or be on display somewhere. But it's going to take a lot of work. This thing needs a full restoration. I sure would love to be able to do a follow-up video one of these days down the road to show this thing being towed somewhere, to show it being worked on, to show the progress, to show it shining again, and to maybe see this man see this jet in a restored state in its forever home. Some people may look at this jet and just see a hunk of metal sitting there. I look at this jet and I see a piece of our history. A once gleaming and proud bird that cut through our skies at 500 miles an hour, that safely carried pilots across this whole country, and that steadfastly stood guard and watched over our northern border. My sincere hope is that this video does some good to accomplish the goal of finding somewhere for this T-33 to go and be restored and ultimately be displayed proudly. Thank you so much for watching this. I hope somewhere down the road we can look back and say, we saved a shooting star.